welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program is a sad episode of sorts. We're discussing the passing of Greg Kihn, a legend in the rock industry, and one that I had the pleasure of getting to talk to on two occasions for the podcast. And we try and do these reflective episodes. I think more for posterity, but also in tribute of those that have given of themselves and given of their time to Concert Pipeline as well, and given moments of their time to talk to me and let me into their world, even for a few minutes to do an interview. And again, I had the chance to interview him on several occasions, and so I'm going to share both interviews that I did with Greg Kihn. This press release about his passing came into my email box this morning, and I immediately realized got to go back, got to dig up the old interviews and pay my respects to Greg. And it wasn't easy to dig up the interviews, honestly. These are audio only interviews before I started doing video through Zoom and incorporating video as a part of the podcast. So I'm going to roll pictures for those that are watching on YouTube. I'm going to roll pictures from his performance that I had a chance to see, where he played in Lincoln, California on August 11th, 2017. That as the background for those that want to visually and take it in through YouTube. Again, I don't have video of our actual conversation, but listen to the audio because we had great chats and it was a lot of fun. My first time talking to Greg Kihn was episode 139 of Concert Pipeline. If you want to go back and listen to the original episode, which aired on May 15th, 2017. And we're going to play that interview first. But first, before we do, let me kind of share a little bit from the press release, about Greg Kihn. It's with profound sadness that we announce the passing of Greg Kihn, an iconic figure in the realm of rock music. Greg lost his battle with Alzheimer's disease on August 13th, 2024, at the age of 75. Known for his magnetic stage presence and unique storytelling that captivated audiences around the globe, he was not merely a musician, but a cultural phenomenon whose influence will resonate for generations to come. And he was born on July 10th in 1949 in the vibrant city of Baltimore, Maryland. He discovered a passion for music early in life. I'm sure we, dive into that in the interviews that I had with him. But he was huge in the San Francisco music scene. He was also a radio DJ, for many years, which we talk about as well. So we'll cover that. But he's most known for his hit songs, Jeopardy, the Breakup Song, Remember, and Lucky. Those are some of his hits. Weird Al parodied the Jeopardy song, so that even before I really knew Greg Kihn, me being a Weird Al fan, I knew his song through Weird Al's voice. And again, he was on KFOX morning radio for 17 years. He was a syndicated nighttime radio host across the country, a rock legend in his own right. He had his annual Kinfest concert that he did every year. And his family says, in lieu of flowers, they request that donations be made in Greg Kihn's name to the Alzheimer's Association for help to help end Alzheimer's disease. So rest in peace, Greg Kihn. Your music, your voice, your stories, your spirit, and your passion will forever echo in our hearts and inspire countless souls. I pulled that from the press release as well, but it's absolutely true. Thank you to John Lappin for helping set up the interviews on several occasions that I got to see him or talk to him. And again, the opportunity to see him play with Huey Lewis in Lincoln, California was really cool. And at the end of the program, we'll play a song from that set so that we remember that Greg Kihn's music lives on. So let's go ahead and let's get into my first interview from 2017 with Greg Kihn.
Hello, this is Steve Jones.
Steve Jones, it's Greg Kihn calling.
Greg, how you doing?
I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I was just running behind here, and I'm calling you about a half hour late. I hope it's not a problem.
No, it's all good. We're ready for you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So Greg, so first off, we'll start with the new stuff, and we'll work our way back a little bit. Rekindle. Tell me a little bit about how that album came about.
Well, the band has been reformed in the past year. We've got my son Rye on lead guitar, and Robert Berry on bass, and Dave Lautzer from the Sammy Hagar band on drums. And it was great to be out there playing again. And I just started writing songs. It was very spontaneous. Me and Rye and Robert would meet once a week at his studio at Soundtech Studios in Campbell, California. Every Wednesday we'd just, go for the afternoon and kick around song ideas. And you know what? After a couple of weeks, we started seriously having an album. I mean, we were making a dent. The first song that we recorded for the album was Big Pink Flamingos. And the story behind that one was I wanted to come up with a song like Oh Well by Fleetwood Mac. Do you remember that one?
I think I do. It sounds familiar. I don't know if I...
It's like, they sing and then they stop and then they play and then they stop and then they sing again. And I was telling that to Rye, my son, and he said, "Oh, you mean like Black Dog by Led Zeppelin?" I said, "Absolutely, son. That's exactly what I'm talking about." So Rye goes back, does his homework, comes back the next day. He starts playing the riff that would be Big Pink Flamingos. And it was just infectious. And out of a clear blue, I had really no preconceived notions or anything. Out of the clear blue, I just started singing Big Pink Flamingos. I don't know how it got into my mind. It fit perfectly. And we wrote that song literally in about 15 minutes and recorded it that first day. So that was kind of kicked off the album. After that, it was all easy.
And I have my co-host Jens here with me as well, and so he'll be asking some questions throughout. But I know your style is really organic. You really don't kind of dwell over those arrangements. You let it flow naturally, right? So that's kind of how you've been throughout your musical career, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And if you look back on my body of work, if you look, the big songs like Jeopardy, Breakup Song, stuff like that, the big hits were all written really very quickly, organically. In other words, they really wrote themselves. And I'm a big proponent, if you're a songwriter, especially a young songwriter, learn how to let the song be what it wants. You know what I want? You know what I say? It's like... You don't force it to be any particular thing. Just let it go. And if your creative muscles are working, you're going to come up with something really cool. And all of the pretty much, I'd say 90% of the album was written organically, kind of off the cuff like that. We would show up and we'd have an idea, we'd kick it around, and by the end of the day, we'd have a song. And, this is my first album in over 20 years.
It's been a minute, right?
First studio album. Yeah, well, we had some live stuff and stuff like that, and greatest hits, but this is my first real studio album in over 20 years. And it's wonderful because I'm working with a new band, I'm working with my son, and, blood is thicker than water, and it really makes a difference. Now, Rye had some big shoes to fill because he was coming in replacing Jimmy Lyon, who was in Eddie Money's band for about 8 years, and he also played with Tina Turner, and he was replacing Joe Satriani. So those are some huge
I mean,
huge shoes to fill.
You don't get much bigger than Joe Satriani, right? So did Rye kind of grow into that? Did you like instill that in him, or was it natural?
Here's the thing: when Joe was in the band, Rye was about 16 or 17, and he'd already been taking guitar lessons, but he started studying with Joe Satriani, became a student with Joe, and for that, I guess it was over maybe 2 years. While Joe was in the band, Rye was taking guitar lessons from Joe, and it's amazing that when he wants to, he can sound exactly like Joe Satriani. But the nice thing about Rye is that he graduated from Cal Arts as a jazz guitar major, and he went to Berklee School of Music in Boston and all that kind of stuff. So he really is a complete guitar player. He can play jazz, he can shred, he can play Satriani kind of stuff, he can play hard rock. So any idea that we come up with, he can tackle it. And the fact that I had a guy that was my son. I mean, it's not like he's going to quit the band or anything. As a matter of fact, my goal, because now I got 2 grandsons, right? So my goal is in about 10 years, we're going to add a couple more kids, and we'll have 3 generations of Kihns in the band. Wouldn't that be a cool thing?
I mean, it's literally your kin, right? So
Yeah. I will say, look, I know I sound like a bragging father, but Rye really is an exceptional guitar player. And I have to thank Joe for really helping him out early in his career. Joe, as you know, he's the gold standard when it comes to electric guitar. So that was one of those happy accidents, when you go in the studio and you realize you got your son. I look across through the glass into the studio, I see my son there playing, and it's just, I get a warm feeling. Plus, the rest of the guys, I mean, we're all like brothers, and I really feel like this is the best Greg Kihn band in a long, long time, and we're going to be taking the whole thing out on the road. The whole thing about Greg Kihn was, I was on the radio for 18 years on KFOX in San Francisco. And I was doing the morning show. And you know what it's like when you get up at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Have a life.
Yeah.
I just didn't have a damn life. And then when the weekend rolled around, I was too pooped to go out and play gigs. I just wanted to sleep. So for 18 years I did that, and I was really out of the loop. And now that we're getting back in the game, it's like people are going, Greg Kihn, holy cow, is he still around? I thought he broke up.
Oh, hey, Greg, it's Jens here. It's great to hear those stories. So you were a radio DJ for a while. I mean, did you miss writing albums during that time and being on the road? Or
I tell you, first of all, it was great because I didn't have to travel. I love playing, but I hate airports and I hate long flights.
Oh, I hear you.
But with me, I love playing, and I didn't get to play much because all those. We had one gig a year that was the Kinsert. It was a big show down at the Shoreline Amphitheater. We did that every summer, sponsored by the station, and we had great acts. We had The Who, and the Greg Kihn band would open the show, and that was the deal. So you got Greg Kihn band, and then whatever our headliner was. So we had The Who one year, we had Leonard Skinner, we had Steve Miller, we had, you name it. We've had pretty much every current classic rock band still around. And that was fun, but I missed it. I missed playing. And then when they let me go at the station a couple of years ago, it was like, gee, we got to go back and didn't I used to play the guitar? Didn't we used to play gigs? And now, it really has come full circle. I really feel great. I feel like I got a new lease on life. I have a whole new creative bent. You know,
Great.
It's been wonderful, and it's all because of the new album, Rekindled. I mean, you know, it really is rekindled, as in, I hope this rekindles my career.
I see. Yeah. I hear what you mean with the name of the title and, you know, coming full circle. You know, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and trying to understand that feeling of what it was like transitioning back into, you know, writing albums again after being on radio for such a long time. I would almost think that you've got these, you know, ideas for new songs and stuff ready to go, you know. I mean, did you have content over time?
I kept a notebook all those years, and I got tons of song ideas in there. I just never bothered to actually finish the songs. So I got a notebook full of raw ideas, which, you know, it's wonderful because, you know, when we were writing songs for Rekindled, you know, we would just show up, and whoever had a song idea, like whether it was Rye with a guitar riff, or whether it was Robert Barry with like a keyboard thing, or I would come up with a lyric or a chorus, whatever it was, we would just follow the muse. And that, you know, that kind of organically produced album makes great music. You know, let's face it, rock and roll has changed a lot. And, you know, this new generation, you know, I feel like the Greg Kihn band is like a heritage band. You know, we've been around since the 70s, for God's sakes. When we started this, when Rye was a little kid, when Rye was in elementary, he was in preschool when I formed the band. So, and then, you know, here's another thing. You talk about longevity and hanging in there. Of the 5 guys that cut the Breakup Song, that was back in 1981, of those 5 guys, only 2 are left standing. Me, and nobody would have laid odds that I'd be still alive at this point, and Larry Lynch, the drummer, who always drank milk and didn't snort cocaine, he lived. He'll probably outlive us all.
He was doing it right? So you mentioned Rye a lot, but your daughter Lexi has also performed with your band. Also, I mean, she did the family Christmas album. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
She does. Yeah, she doesn't really like to perform, and she's really a dedicated mom. She's also a nurse, so she's got a full-time gig, in her life. So she only likes to do things with the family. And when we cut the Christmas album, that was just spontaneous. We just sat down and had fun with it. Didn't even hardly rehearse at all. And, she's got a beautiful voice, but I never bugged her because, I got my son. I've already ruined his life. Once enough. But, I got to say, I feel great about the new album. I feel like musically and songwriting-wise, it's really a step forward. It's it's liberating to be back in the studio again. As a matter of fact, we just last week, recording stuff for the next album. As a matter of fact, we did 2 songs last Wednesday, and this Wednesday we're going to put the finishing touches, but we're already 2 songs into the next album. Is that unbelievable or what?
I mean, that sounds really incredible. And from what I've heard, you're really, excited about those songs, and you're kind of feel like they might be as big as Jeopardy, and kind of that bad, that time of past, right?
Yeah. But, of course, Jeopardy was a special thing because that was the year that MTV came out, and the video for Jeopardy was one of the first concept videos. It actually told a story, a Night of the Living Dead kind of a story, and we were one of the first guys to actually do a concept video. So MTV played the hell out of it. They played it like every hour because all the other videos were were fake live, or, you know, chicks running down alleys with lingerie on. But, you know, it wasn't really a story. We came along and actually, you know, told a story. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun making it was like making a Roger Corman movie, man. It was really cool. But that came along and it got a ton of airplay, and it made Jeopardy a huge hit. Plus, at the time, I was on the road with Journey. Geez, we were on the road with Journey for about 1.5 years, and we opened the biggest venues in the land, you know, Madison Square Garden and, you know, stuff like that, the Meadowlands, and we were playing everywhere. And I got to learn how to play in front of 80,000 people, but make it seem like a small club and make it intimate. And, you know, all of those contributed to the story of Jeopardy. It was a great story. And then to top it off, Weird Al comes.
Weird Al, yeah.
Does a parody of it. Then I get mailbox money. To this day, I get mailbox money from Weird Al. God bless him.
Right?
He put that song on a multi-platinum album, Weird Al's Greatest Hits.
Yeah. So how did that come about? You even made a cameo in the video, so I know you were totally down with that.
It was a lot of fun. I got to meet Don Pardo. Let me tell you what you didn't win. You know, it was great. I really enjoyed hanging out. I went down to L.A. to do the video shoot, and I was hanging with Weird Al. He's a really funny guy. You know, we did it in one 24-hour marathon shoot, and you know they had a Jeopardy set. You know, with everything, it was 100%, you know, perfect. And you know, I just hung out with Weird Al the whole day, and he kept me laughing, and we had a great time, and that was a pleasure, man. And you know, of all the people too, I asked Weird Al because he has to ask permission to do a parody. He called me one day, and I said, "Absolutely, I want to. You know, yes, please do a parody of my song." I was flattered, you know, because you have to be well known enough to be parodied.
It's kind of an honor, right?
So I was really happy about that. But I asked him, you know, has anyone ever turned you down? Because I know Michael Jackson and people like that just loved him. He said, yeah, the only guy that ever turned me down was Prince. And he said he was way too serious about his music and he didn't want to be parodied. Al wanted to do a Purple Rain parody.
Yeah.
And apparently Prince turned him down. But that was the only guy that ever turned him down. I was really flattered when he called me up, and let's face it, he did a brilliant job with the parody. And like I said, God bless that man. I still get mailbox money.
Oh yeah, my kids love it. So, so thanks to you for you know, kind of inspiring that for my kids. They're a big Weird Al fan. I actually took my daughter to see Weird Al last year. So yeah,
he's wonderful live too. He's just a pleasure.
Totally consistent in his art. So
great.
So anyway, the new album's doing great. You can get it everywhere. It's on iTunes. It's on Amazon. It's on everything. All the formats that you could possibly do. You can download it. You can buy the CD. GregKihn.com is a good place to start. You know, by the way, GregKihn.com, I got all my novels up there. You can buy them. I've got 5 novels out. And I got all 18 of our albums in print again. Something that I did over the last couple of years.
Yeah, you just got the rights back to them, right? So.
What's that?
You just got the rights back to your original to your albums, right?
Yeah, it's not amazing. It took a long time. I mean, obviously, going back to the 70s with Berserkly Records. But, you know, I stayed with it over the years. It took 20 years to get it all back. You know, one by one, I got the Berserkly catalog back. I had to buy it, But thank God I had the money, and it just so happened that it came up for sale, and I was Johnny on the spot, and I had a whole bunch of money. I wrote a check, and I brought all my boys home, and it was wonderful. And I'm very proud of that. I'm one of the few guys my age, heritage bands, that still owns his publishing. I still, like, all to this day. And we did a lot of stuff like in movies, like The Groomsman, and he was just in a movie. These things go up in movies like once a year, and I'm always making deals with movie makers for soundtracks, and it's really great when you own your own stuff. I mean, it's just wonderful.
Right, that's got to feel good.
Like I said before, everybody that I know, from Joan Jett to Eddie Money to everybody, and I love them all, they're my friends, but just about every one of them, over the years, for one reason or another, sold their publishing. They needed the money, whatever. I, on the other hand, was buying back my publishing, and I even finally got the EMI albums back. So now I have the complete Greg Kihn catalog. It's just wonderful to have it, and you can go to gregkihn.com anytime, and if you wanted to buy the second album, boom, you could do it. Also, obviously, all the novels are on there, and I'm working on my 6th novel right now. Should be coming out in the spring of next year.
Does that tie into the horror show kind of series, or?
No, I moved on, and I wrote a song. I wrote a novel called Rubber Soul, which was about the Beatles. It was about the Beatles in Hamburg in the early days, and it was fiction. But it was interesting because when I was a DJ, I got to do tons of interviews, and I got to some really good interviews over the years. And among them, I got to interview Paul McCartney twice. I got to talk to Ringo Starr twice. I spoke with all the Beatles women, Yoko, the whole 9 yards. Plus Pete Best, the original drummer. And I asked them all the same question. Where did the Beatles get their music? Where did they get, how did they get Twist and Shout? You couldn't go to an import shop. You couldn't buy it. You couldn't buy it in Liverpool or anywhere else. And they all gave me the same answer. They got them from merchant marines returning from the States. And they would bring stacks of those 45 RPM singles, R&B stuff, back to Liverpool. And depending on who you knew, you could have a repertoire. And that's where the Beatles came up with Twist and Shout and Chains and, all of that stuff, Money, Anna, all of those great Beatles covers were all inspired by somebody. And in my novel, it's Dustbin Bob. See, he's got a stall in the flea market, and he's selling the records, and the Beatles come along, and they discover him, and they become really best of friends with Dustbin Bob because they're the same age, and they love the music, and he furnishes them with records all the time, and they become best of friends, and then later, many years later, in Manila, they saved the Beatles' lives. Dustbin Bob saved the Beatles' lives. And by the way, Dustbin is garbage can in England. So Dustbin Bob was actually Garbage Can Bob, and that they called him that because he was a second-hand guy. And it gave me a great idea. I thought, hey, that's going to be my next novel. So I wrote that, and it was a lot of fun. You can buy it too at gregkihn.com, and that was called Rubber Soul. And then I quickly wrote the sequel to that, which was about the death of Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones, and that was called Painted Black. And now I'm working on a new one called Anarchy, which takes place during the punk era, and it's still Dustbin Bob. He's still saving the day. Saving the day.
And are you still? I'd read you're working on writing a feature film as well, right?
Yeah, I've always got a lot of irons in the fire. Yes, I have, and I wrote a comedy called Rock and Roll Retirement Home, which I was just working on today and putting the finishing touches because I'm sending it to Imagine Films because the president of Imagine Films is a friend of a friend, and I happened to mention that I had the screenplay, and he said, "Chief, I'd love to look at it." And he said, "Well, is it horror?" I go, "No, actually, it's a comedy. It's about old rock stars in a retirement home. I mean, what could be funnier than that?" And he said, "I love that idea." So I'm putting the finishing touches. I'll be sending it off. But, I'm hoping that in the next year or two, my luck will change and I will get a chance to make a movie.
That's exciting. I'm just blown away by how talented you are. I mean, here you've have this music career as a rock and roller, right? You've done DJ work. You're expressing yourself, as an author. Is there another artistic outlet that you're, thinking about pursuing? I'm imagining you, oil painting, or what's the next big thing?
Hey, maybe when I retire, I'll do that. Who knows?
That's funny. You were talking about the Beatles earlier, and I got this visual of me hanging out in the 70s and 80s. In elementary school and in high school, swirling around on my dad's chair in the living room, listening to, vinyl of Abbey Road and Sgt. Pepper's, and those were albums. I mean, that was back.
Stuff.
Yeah, that was the stuff back then, and those albums is what really got me into music back then. And I understand that, the Beatles also had a big impact on you and your musical direction.
Absolutely. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was I guess I was about 13 years old maybe. And it was Sunday night. We were watching the Ed Sullivan Show. Everybody had been talking about the Beatles all week. And this was our first chance to see them. And the whole family, huddled around the TV to see this. And apparently everybody in the world watched that song. I watched those great tunes that they did on the first Ed Sullivan Show. And I remember pointing to the screen going, "That's what I'm going to do, you guys. That's what I want to be." And they're like, oh, God, no, please. But, ironically, it's funny because, I tell the story about my mom and the contest. My mom, when I was a young guy, I thought I was Bob Dylan. I bought the freewheeling Bob Dylan album.
Right.
This is before the Beatles even. And I loved that folky thing, and I wanted to be a songwriter too. And I was just, I was like maybe 13 or 14 years old, and I got a guitar, and I go into my mother's bathroom in the shower stall because it had great acoustics. And I had a little Wallensack tape recorder, a little reel-to-reel, 3-inch reels tape recorder. And I record demos in the shower stall.
Well, that's hilarious.
They didn't sound all that bad. So my mother, unbeknownst to me, sent one of those tapes into a talent contest on the local Baltimore top 40 station, WCAL. And lo and behold, I won. It must have been a terrible year for songwriters. I won, and I won 3 things that affected my life. I won an electric guitar, a Vox electric guitar, which I still have, by the way.
Nice.
An electric typewriter, which I still don't have. But that was great. That was long before computers, when electric typewriters were just the rage.
Right.
And I remember getting that thing, and I just started stuffing it with paper and started writing stories like a madman. And the third thing I wrote was a stack of records. So a guitar, a typewriter, and a stack of records. Three three careers that I would have: DJ, author, and musician.
Yeah, and so I want to talk to you a little bit, Greg, about life in the Bay Area. You live in San Jose now, right?
Actually, yes.
And so tell me kind of about growing up. I mean, I know you kind of you kind of moved to San Francisco in 1972, but tell me about growing up in the Bay, the venues that you'd like to go to, and also kind of the relationship with Bill Graham and kind of how kind of that interaction came about.
Well, Bill was a wonderful guy. I really miss him. He was a big Greg Kihn fan, and he used to get, open shows for Bill Graham all the time. In fact, whenever he had an opportunity, he'd call me up. And, all of my good Bill Graham stories, I mean, I got a million of them, but they were all like, Bill liked me for a couple of reasons. Number one, when I said I'd show up at 7:15, I showed up at 7:15. When I said I'd play for 47 minutes, I played for 47 minutes. When he said get on, I got on. When he said get off, I got off. I never gave him any lip. If he said, so my first ever gig at Winterland, because we'd work with Bill at Fillmore and other places, but not Winterland, which was a much bigger venue. We wound up opening for Black Sabbath. And they hated us. I mean, this was when I was still like writing introspective love songs and stuff. So they put us on before Black Sabbath because Cheap Trick was supposed to open, but Robin Zander had laryngitis. So Bill calls me up around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He goes, Cheap Trick can't do it. Can you be down here and set up and ready to go by 7:30? I said, no problem, Bill. So I called the guys, we jumped in our cars, ran over there. I didn't even ask who we were going to be playing with. We set up our stuff. Turns out we were opening for Black Sabbath, and they hated us. They hated us. They were giving us the finger. They were throwing stuff at us. I mean, they were lighting candles and chanting and stuff, and it was really kind of scary. So I wound up cutting the set a little bit short, and I walk off the stage, and Bill Graham is right there on the side of the stage. And I go, Bill, why'd you put us on with Sabbath, man? You threw us to the wolves. And Bill says, hey, I just wanted to see what you were made of. I knew it was a tough gig for you, but I thought you did good. And from that day on, we opened 1 million shows at Winterland. And I had a very great relationship with Bill, and it was really sad to see him die, man. It really was. The entrepreneurial spirit that guys like, he's the only one I can think of. It's all gone now. It's all corporate. It's all, boardrooms and, 8 guys making a decision. Back in the day, it was Bill Graham. He made the decisions. He decided who to put on. He would decorate the stage himself and everything. He was hands on, and I really miss that. And of course, a lot of the promoters now around the country, it's all much more corporate now.
Yeah. So what were your favorite venues to play back in the day? I mean, I talk about it a lot on the podcast, but I mean, my favorite to go to and see shows is the Fillmore. You mentioned. I mean, it's such a history there.
Because you felt like you were part of history. You know what I mean? I remember playing. This is a typical Bill Graham story. We played at Spartan Stadium in San Jose. That's by San Jose State. And, God, it's like 85,000 people holds the stadium, right? And it was packed out. We were opening for the Grateful Dead. And it was 2 shows. It was 160,000 people over 2 shows. Unbelievable. And so, and Bill puts us with the opening band. We go out there. This is right in 1983 when Jeopardy was a big hit. So we go out there and we do all of our hits. We do Breakup Song. We do Jeopardy. We do Lucky. We do everything. Nothing. They're sitting on their hands. They're like nobody was clapping or anything. So I said, well, screw it, let's just jam. So we started, we did a jam version of like a 20-minute version of Johnny Be Good, you know, and just jammed and did long guitar solos and stuff. And we got a standing ovation. The Deadheads wanted us to jam. They didn't want to see all of our hit songs.
Yeah, different
they
audience.
They wanted to see us get down and dirty.
Yeah. And so that's incredible, and I wanted to talk to you also. I mean, I know you've played SNL in the past. Tell me kind of about that experience.
Oh, that was wonderful because Howard Cosell was the guest host. Howard Cosell, and he was, you know, he was always in character, and they didn't really like him that much, so he wound up. His dressing room was right across the hall from mine, and we were kind of isolated in one end of the building, and because all the cast all stuck to themselves, so it was me and Howard, and the guy. I can't remember. Howard just sat in his dressing room drinking Old Granddad and watching hockey games. It was really fun. I used to go and hang out with him, you know, and they'd have a catered meal, and he'd comment on everything. These peas are horrible. I wouldn't put them to a dog.
Great.
He was always Howard Cosell, and I remember I'm introducing my band. You know, one point he comes over and I go, hey, I want to introduce my guy. Here's here's Dave Carpenter on guitar, and this guy and that guy. And I get to the last guy and I go, and here's Steve Wright, my bass player. And Howard Cosell immediately smashed into Howard. Phil, he's like, Howard, he goes, Steve Wright, University of Miami, 1983. You were the Eshmont Award winner of the Best Lineman of the Year, drafted by the New York Jets in the third round. You had it all, kid, and then you blew it. What happened? I said, Howard, wrong Steve Wright. All right, never mind.
Spoken just like him. Well done.
I loved Howard. They're all gone now. All these great personalities. I talked about being a survivor here, and we're playing a couple of gigs this summer with some other classic rock bands like Huey Lewis and the News. So many of my compatriots are not even working anymore. You know what I mean? And it's just, I think it's a great time to rekindle, if you will, all of our careers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned you playing with Huey Lewis. It's actually a coincidence that I know you're going to be playing with him. But over the past couple of weekends, I actually showed. I have two kids. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. And I showed them the Back to the Future.
Man, hey.
Yeah.
I got my grandkids are just turned 8 and 4. So that I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a great age. And by the way, they really pumped up when when Grandpa comes over. I always bring my guitar. We always sing songs. And whenever I have a gig that they can go to, like next month, I've got a fair gig at the Santa Clara County Fair.
Yeah.
Which is perfect because it's a Saturday afternoon. The kids can go. They can go on rides, and then they can see Grandpa's band. When the evening comes, and they're really pumped up. I mean, they've been to a couple of gigs, and they just love it.
That's fantastic. I mean, most kids are never going to have that experience in terms of seeing their parents or their grandparents or whatever, on stage at such a young age.
I'll tell you, one thing you got to do is buy instruments. I always buy instruments whenever I see stuff at garage sales or used things or wherever. I got them a guitar, I got them a keyboard, I got them a set of drums, I got them a conga, I got them bongos, I got a banjo. I mean, I just, wherever I see stuff, and I bring it, I just leave it there. And you know what? They play. They pick up the instruments and they play as if they're playing. They play, and like, in other words, they'll just beat on the bongos and yell something, but in their mind they're playing that they're singing. You know what I mean? It really is, it's heartwarming. I love my grandkids. But then again, I love kids. It's really wonderful to be playing now and to see a whole new generation of we've got their parents, and now we've got their now we got their grandparents, and now we got kids coming to the shows. So it really is. It's a wonderful thing, and I feel like for a lot of these people, they're getting to know the band for the first time. And whenever I go out and I sing Jeopardy or Breakup Song, it's like, oh yeah, I know that song, and it's just a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned you're recording the new album. Do you have a kind of you're in the initial stages, of course, of that. Do you have kind of a time frame of when you expect that to come out, or?
That's one of the things that we don't do. We just start recording, and then when it's done, it's done. So I don't have, the nice thing about recording work for your own record company is that there's no pressure, and I can basically do it whenever I want. So there's no deadline. It'll be finished when it's finished. But I kind of think it'll be done, maybe by the fall, so that maybe we kind of like a spring release next year. We're already 2 songs into it, 3 actually, because I wrote another one just yesterday, and I got 2 more song ideas I want to whip out for them. So we could be halfway through this thing in a month.
Yeah, and one last question, kind of as we wind out here. You some of your songs are more autobiographical, and some are more fiction. Kind of, I understand the autobiographical is kind of harder to delve into. Tell me a little bit about your process between the two.
Well, the autobiographical ones are you're sharing your innermost thoughts, and like there's a lot of stuff like that on the new album. Good to Be Me. A lot of those songs, like Anthem, The Life I Got, they are very autobiographical. But I didn't find it was hard to. I felt like it was easy to reveal that stuff, and I felt like it was liberating and kind of good to get off some of that stuff off your chest. Then we had a lot of fiction stuff, obviously, like Big Pink Flamingos is a good example, or Cassandra, or some of the other ones, which are, they're kind of like mini novels. I kind of like with Cassandra and with the other one, Big Pink Flamingos, I visualized the girl that I was writing the song about, and once I visualized it, it was real easy to like the song. Because you can really visualize the trailer trash girl with her hair in curlers, and wearing stretch pants and chewing gum, and she comes alive in your mind. And also Cassandra was say that. And then we had some topical songs this time around. Tell Me Something Good, which kind of new for me. The Brain Police, which was a lot of fun to record. So I think we've got fiction, we've got autobiographical stuff, we've got topical stuff. I really don't, anything's game. It's all part of the trip here, and I really feel like the best songs are yet to come.
Well, that's excellent to hear. And Greg, we want to thank you for taking the time today. I mean, I know you. I was telling Jens before the show that that you're the kind of guy who has stories, and we could talk to you for hours and just scratch the surface. I mean, it's so.
You know what the problem is? I probably talk for hours. That's the problem.
Well, you're used to it. You were a DJ. You had 4 hours in the morning to fill every morning, right? So
I'll tell you. I got more yarns than a Rastafarian hat factory,
Yeah, awesome. well, yeah, absolutely, Greg. Thanks for taking the time. We look forward to seeing you later this summer, also when you're playing some shows here. And have a great rest of your week. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all the fans, and hopefully we'll be playing soon in your town. And as I said before, this is the time to see the band. New album, new drummer, new guitar player, new everything. Like, this is it, man. And I just wanted to thank all the fans out there.
Sounds good, Greg. Thank you so much for being on the show.
All right, talk to you guys later.
Sure. And Greg, could you do a promo for the podcast real quick?
Sure.
I'm Greg Kihn, and you're listening to Concert Pipeline, something like that.
What's it called?
Concert Pipeline.
Concert by phone?
Concert Pipeline.
Oh, Pipeline. Jesus.
It's all good.
Okay, here we go. Hey, this is Greg Kihn, and you're listening to Kihn. Woo!
Take two.
Greg Kihn. One more, take two. Hey, this is Greg Kihn, and you're listening to Concert Pipeline, your pipeline to great music.
We love it. Awesome. Well, yeah. Thanks again, Greg. Yeah, you have a great one. Okay.
Hey, thanks, you guys, and appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
That was my first interview with Greg Kihn from back in 2017. And then Greg had some more stuff to promote and we weren't done talking. So this next part is like a continuation of that original chat. It's like we picked up where we left off. I let him know that we had talked the year before and I had a chance to get to see him live. And the conversation just went on from there. He's such a natural conversationalist. I mean, that was his profession as a radio DJ. So being able to, so it was just a really joyous, natural conversation that we had. And we're going to get into it right now. So let's share that.
Hello, this is Steve Jones.
Steve Jones, Greg Kihn calling.
Greg Kihn, how you doing?
Doing good, man. How's yourself?
Hey, doing great. We got to talk last year, actually, and I saw you when you played with Huey Lewis out in Sacramento. That was
yes, I remember that gig. It was a good gig.
Yeah. Have you played with Huey a lot over the years?
Oh, yeah, tons of times. And then we just found out that a couple of days later that Huey's ear was giving him problems. His inner ear, he couldn't hear it, and he had to postpone a whole bunch of concerts.
Oh no! Is he doing better now? I hadn't heard that.
I don't know. I haven't talked to him in probably like 6 months, but yeah, that was right around the time.
Yeah. It was. I mean, a really good show. I'd never seen Huey before either, and
oh, he's great, isn't he? I'm telling you, the guy's amazing. He just keeps going.
Yeah, just like yourself, though. I mean, you're not.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, you're not new to this, so you've been doing it for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. But I look back on my career. I mean, I've really been lucky. I mean, geez, we started back. I mean, it was back in the analog days. You know what I mean? It was way back there.
Yeah, and so tell me, I mean, obviously you've been around for all of the changes pretty much, right? So tell me how that's changed your process from back when you started, recording on analog to what you're doing now.
Well, I think it's a lot better now, actually. Now the digital world that we live in now, first and foremost, when you go into the studio, it's a lot easier to record digitally. I mean, most of these things are honed down to where you just, set a wavelength or push a button and that's it. And it's not, you don't have to, I mean, back in the beginning of recording, recorded history, I remember back in the old days, we used to start with 4 and then 6 and then 8 tracks.
Yeah.
And I remember because... and, of course, you had to be really, when you were bouncing tracks down, you had to be really careful. But, I remember, those days of two-track machines, usually two MPEX 2-track machines would be standard equipment. And then they'd use the 2 machines to bounce back, the various tracks that they had, so it would get, it would go like 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you were out of tracks. It was like, I remember that talking to the engineer. We went in to do our second album, and during that first and second album, God, this was back in the early Paleozoic era, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, but I remember, I remember telling the engineer, "Oh man, 16 tracks. We'll never use 16 tracks.
We need 16 tracks, right?
We're used to 4 tracks. No, don't even worry about it. We'll never use 16 tracks." Little did I know that we would use 16 tracks on the drums alone. But hey, who was counting it? I was shocked. Oh my God, you mean we have 16 whole tracks to fill up? What are we going to put on? It was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
But nowadays you just go in and record it. You don't worry about the degradation of the signal or anything like that. You just pulled in, and doing the last album was so much easier. You know what I mean? Like if I wanted to do another vocal, just bounce that one out and bounce a new one in.
Yeah.
And it was a lot easier. And I just feel like looking back now, I mean, there used to be tricks. If you had a good old engineer, a guy like Glenn Kolodkin, who was our first and second and third album engineer, and this guy was old school, right?
Yeah.
And he was an analog guy, and that was the way things were in those days. And they would have tricks. Oh yeah, I know how to make the drums sound really live. They would go in there and try, like different microphone placements, and they'd have tricks to make your little 4-track recording sound really good. And it was amazing because nowadays there's no tricks. There's just a button. Oh, you want the sun sound? No problem. I just push this button and instant Elvis.
It's almost like, someone cooking your food for you, right? As opposed to going out and hunting for it. So
that's right. Yes, exactly. I'll take that medium rare.
You're right. Exactly. So is there have you gone back ever, and since we've had this luxury, I guess you could say, of digital, have you gone back and recorded anything on 4-track or analog, and just to kind of do the
really
work?
Haven't. Really, I have no desire to do it right now. In the digital world, and you know what? This is only a transitional stage. There'll be a next digital world, and it'll probably be some kind of 3D. Way of recording so that everything is stands out. But hey, we just started this journey, so yeah. God knows where it's going to end. Probably in 10 years, who knows what they're going to be doing.
It's hard to even fathom, right? Because I'm sure back, when you were recording early like that, you could have never imagined that it would be like what it is like now. It's like even with the cell phone or video, FaceTime and video phones, right? Like, could you ever imagine like talking to someone, and seeing them visually like that before? I mean, it's unfathomable.
Oh yeah, imagine that. We would have never imagined that you'd get that in a phone.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this: the guys went to the moon on a Commodore 2000 computer. They went to the moon and back on a computer that would not drive a cell phone in today's world.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
It's incredible.
And they staked their lives on that. They went all the way around the moon. I mean, the moon is 250,000 miles away. It's 250,000 miles away. And now you would think in astronomical terms, that's just like really close.
Yeah.
Let's just reach out and touch it, as opposed to the sun, for instance, is way far away from the Earth. It's like, I think, 99 million miles, something like that.
Right.
How do I? What did I get? You know,
I know. I was like, how do you store that information, Greg?
Yeah, you know, I read a lot of astronomy magazines, and I got all this arcane information. It pops up every once in a while.
Yeah, and so I want to ask you about your, playing with your son Ryan. He's the guitar player in your band, and has been for a while. So tell me first, about him growing up. Usually I talk to a lot of musicians, right? And I like to ask them about their parents, influence on them musically. But, for you, kind of I'd like to hear both sides of it, your parents, but also how you handed that down.
Well, I'll tell you, when Ryan was young, like, he grew up backstage. He grew up watching the Greg Kihn band.
Yeah.
And, I remember when he first started taking guitar lessons, he got good really pretty quickly. And by the time he had generated up to Joe Satriani, that we was working with Joe, I thought to myself, wow, this kid is really good. And when Jimmy Lyons quit the band, God, I can't even pull a year out of my hat, but he quit to become an airline pilot. And I was like, for a minute, like, I didn't know, should I break up the band? What should we do? And, Rye stepped up. I remember the first gig, he just stepped up. And he said, "I'll do it, Dad." And he gets in there and he nails it perfect on the first gig.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it, And I said, "Ryan, you talk about deeply satisfying, something that is really deeply satisfying to see your son playing your music and adding a dimension to it that that frankly I didn't even hear, And now I love working with Rob. I can't imagine, people say, "How are you pretty close to your guitar player?" Well, yeah,
a little
kind
bit.
of.
Yeah.
He's my son,
Created him, yeah.
And you think about it, like, wow, I don't know what it's like to not have my son be the lead guitarist. How about that?
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be like to have a stranger up there playing that same riff. It would be completely different. But I love playing with Ryan. He's a very gifted guitar player. I consider myself a lucky man. Now I'm working on the next generation. I got 2 grandsons.
Yeah. You're spending time with them, giving them the guitar.
They're 8 and 6. 8 and 6 years old. So I'm going to start them probably in the next year on guitar. And I would say in 2 or 3 years, there'll be 3 generations of Kihns in the Greg Kihn band.
Hey, there you go. They'll be on stage with you. And was that about the age where your son, picked up the guitar? You handed him the guitar as well? 6.
Well, I remember he didn't want a guitar. He wanted Hot Wheels, I think.
Yeah.
And we got it to him for Christmas, and we gave him the Hot Wheels, and he was really into that. And the guitar was like, yeah, that's cool, but I think it took him a couple of months, and then as time went by, he really got into the guitar. And you can tell by how much they practice whether they're really into it or not. And he was just a practicing fool. So I was really pleased that Rye picked up the guitar and he was as good as he was. And like I said before, next generations are coming. So, and the nice thing about this was the last album, Rekindled, I wrote a lot of the songs with Rye and Robert Berry, who's the bass player in the Greg Kihn band and also the producer.
Yeah.
So Robert and I actually brought Rye into the studio, and he was actually involved in the songwriting, which was a whole nother level, because then he would suggest things like, let's try this on that, and it's like, wow, yeah, that's a great idea. So, you know, we went from just playing together to songwriting together, and that was pretty cool, too.
And so having Robert be the producer, tell me about the relationship with him and kind of, I guess, giving up some vulnerability to his perspective. How much of it did you go in with versus, he pulled out of you?
Well, Robert's like a brother to me, and I've known him for a million years, and he is one of the best musicians I ever met in my life. The guy plays every instrument in the band. He plays every instrument really well. He's a really good drummer. He's a great bass player, fantastic guitar player, unbelievable keyboard player. He sings, he arranges, he writes songs. He's unbelievable. So having that guy in the band, it really makes my job a lot easier. And I just feel like I come in there with a song idea. Like we usually get together on Wednesday. Yeah. So I'll drive down to the studio on Wednesday, and we'll just kick a couple of song ideas around. And before you know it, by lunchtime we got a song. It's unbelievable.
Hey, that's awesome. And you're still in the Bay, right?
In the Bay?
Yeah, you still live in the Bay Area?
Oh, yeah, still living in the Bay Area. All the guys are living in the Bay Area. Raya's over in the city, and Robert is down in Campbell, down in southern, by San Jose. Yeah. And I'm up here by Walnut Creek, so I'm in the North Bay. Nice. But we're all Bay Area guys.
Yeah, I'm in Napa myself, and I mean, I don't know if you guys caught any of the smoke that's been around the past couple of days.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that was big here. Yeah, and it was floating in. I mean, for a while it didn't look good, did it?
No, my car was covered in ash. The sky was like the sun's on fire. It's just it's crazy times. I mean,
crazy.
And it's kind of reminiscent to last year, with the Napa fires. Like that started behind my house, one of the fires, and so I was evacuated from my house.
Holy cow!
Yeah, for a week.
Well, you're lucky. You're lucky you're walking around, man. You could have got torched.
Oh, I didn't know for a couple of days whether my house was still standing. I was sure it wasn't. So
oh, jeez. I can't imagine that kind of anxiety. That sounds horrible.
It's pretty crazy, but made it through, and you come out stronger, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't kill you; it makes you stronger.
Yeah. So, being from the Bay, do you still get to go out to a lot of shows? What venues do you like to hit up?
Well, you know what? I used to. I was a real gadfly back in the day, but lately I don't go out much anymore. I'm kind of a homebody. I got my home. I'm sitting in my office right now in my house. Yeah. And I do a lot of writing here, whether I'm writing a song or writing a novel or something like that. It really is kind of like it is like a homebody. I used to go out a lot more, but lately I haven't been, and I don't know. Rye goes out all the time. Of course, he's young and unattached.
Yeah.
So he can go out there. I'm like more of a homebody, but I love my family. Once in a while we'll go out to a movie or something. We'll go out to dinner for sure. We do that a lot. But I haven't been to many rock and roll shows. What was the last one? Apart from the ones I'm playing, obviously, because I'm playing all the time, but I see. For instance, right now we're on tour with Rick Springfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I toured with him back in '83, believe it or not. And I see a lot of people out there that I'm playing with, but I don't really go to shows and see other people play. It's maybe I should do that more.
It's good to get out. There's lots of. It's one of the cool things about being in the Bay, also, right? Is there's always a show every night. There's always something to see.
And the nice thing is I know all these people. I know Huey and everybody. Basically the entire Bay Area. We're all friends. And even if it was if it was back when I was on the radio or whether it was just presenting the Kinserts every year. You know, like we always had great bands, you know, Skinner or the Who or, you know, there's just a ton of bands here, the Doobie Brothers, Steve Miller, you know, and they all know me. Like, I remember the last time I think I went out, here's one of the reasons I don't go out.
Here it is.
I went to see Steve Miller at the Saratoga Winery.
Right.
Okay, and, you know, I was enjoying the show, and then he calls me up on stage. Come on, Greg, do a song with us. So I go up on stage, and he gives me a guitar, and he goes, what song do you want to do? And I said, well, let's do something easy, you know, like Mercury Blues. Everybody knows that song. Okay, Mercury Blues, you got it. And right one point, I look at him, and I said, hey, Steve, what key is this in? What key do you do this in? He goes, F sharp. What do you mean F sharp? I don't even know how to make an F sharp. I can't, you know, forget it. I don't play an F sharp. I play an E or A. So I faked the whole thing. I looked like I was doing a solo. Some other guy was doing it.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's you were put on the spot a little bit, right? So.
Well. Hey, and I tell you, after the gig, I said, you know, Steve, look, next time I'm, you know, asking you what key is it, say key of C, key of D, something I can tell you.
Yeah.
This is like, you know, you know, it's like a whole nother world. F sharp, come on, get out of here.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, and so tell me about, you know, you're on the radio obviously for about 20 years, and I want to ask you about that in a minute, but during that time, you didn't do a lot of shows. So what's it been like for you kind of going back and revisiting a lot of your old material and
I'll tell you, man, that was the main thing. That was the tough thing. I really should not have done that. You know, I went like 20 years without playing, you know, with maybe a handful of shows.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you know, if it was anything I'd love to be able to do again, it was that, because we didn't tour. We were off the radar screen, and you know, when you're not in the public eye there for 20 years, you know, your profile goes down, and I wish that I continued to, you know, all of my contemporaries. Guys like Cheap Trick is a really good example. I mean, you know, I knew Robin and Rick and those guys from day one, and they hung in there, and I was on getting up at 4 a.m. and driving to San Jose to be on the radio.
Yeah.
They were on the road somewhere. They were always touring. So now we look back after 20 years, they're in the Hall of Fame, and I'm still struggling. So it's, you know, if I could have done that again, I would have probably played more gigs, or at least did the occasional tour. You know what I mean? Because we lost a lot of forward momentum.
Yeah, and you know, and over time, I mean, also you had to deal with a lot of loss yourself, right? With Dave and Gary and Steve and.
Oh, that was terrible. Nothing as bad as losing band members, man. I mean, they're all dead. The only guys that are left, it's me and Larry Lynch, the drummer, the original drummer. We're the only guys left. Steve Wright is gone. He had stroke, and then Dave Carpenter, he had a bad heart. Gary Phillips had cancer.
Yeah.
It was, you know, and these were guys that I grew up with and I loved. We were like brothers, you know, and then one day they're gone. So, and, you know, over the years, I think I couldn't have done better replacing them with the guys I did, because Robert took up where Steve left off, and Rye, you know, took up where Dave Carpenter left off. So we just kept on moving forward. You know, it's like, you know, pick up your stuff and let's keep moving, man.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what's your secret as far as being able to maintain both, I guess, health wise and also in music? Because rock and roll, I mean, it's a hard lifestyle to uphold, and obviously it's
Yeah.
changed a bit since the '60s, of course, and '70s and all that. But so,
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as you thought it would be, because I remember health wasn't always an issue, but I didn't seem to get that sick. I mean, I'd been in a hospital a couple of times. I had to take my gallbladder out once. But, I mean, I really kind of skipped a bullet like that. And I really, I've been very fortunate that I haven't had any really horrible physical ailments. And knock on wood, wait a minute. There we go. Knock on wood that everything will stay like that. I want to keep doing this. I mean, I'm no spring chicken, but I want to keep doing this until I drop. I don't have any signs of quitting. I'm not going to quit next year or the year after that. We're going to keep doing this until we drop dead. And then when we drop dead, somebody else will pick up. Probably one of my grandsons will pick it up. We'll keep going.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It can be the Ryan Kihn band, and then their grandsons can hop in, right?
Yeah,
So,
well, I should have started it out. Well, here's a funny story. My daughter, when she was in college, had to go to South America she was a nurse. She was training to be a nurse. And one of the things she had to go down there to South America and help the indigenous people with their health problems, like with the Doctors Without Borders. So she went down there with this group, and they were administering health stuff to these natives. And one day in the middle of the jungle in South America, she heard Jeopardy.
yeah. Wow.
She heard Jeopardy, and she traced the sound back to a loudspeaker nailed to a tree, a palm tree, and it was a loudspeaker pump, and it was pumping out Jeopardy. And there was a guy with a little, a stand, really, kind of like a hot dog stand.
Yeah.
And he was selling bootleg CDs. No, they weren't CDs. They were cassettes.
Uh-huh.
Bootleg cassettes. And so she looks and she goes, "Well, that's my father's song." And the guy gives her the CD and the cassette, and it's Gren King Bang.
Wow. Okay. Just all
Gren King Bang. The Gren King Bang. Of course, yes. And I say, "Oh, honey, why did you buy that? I would love to have that now."
Yeah. You weren't getting a cut off of those, were you?
Oh, no, nothing. But thank God for the ASCAP police. They're out there taking care of business.
Yeah. So let's talk about your time being a DJ, because that's obviously an expansive part, a big part of your life as well. So I mean, tell me some of the best experiences you had being a DJ in the Bay Area. What was it that did it for you? Obviously, you mentioned getting up early and everything.
I love the fact that I knew everybody.
Yeah.
So, like, if I had the Doobie Brothers or Steve Miller or Huey Lewis or somebody coming into the studio, we were already buddies. It was like, hey, let's do that Beatles tune that we were doing last time we were together. So that was kind of magical, and I knew everybody, so that it really made it. And I know that when they went to other stations, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
I used to have a couple of guitars in the studio, and I was always ready in case anybody popped by. And somebody would pop by invariably, like Joe Perry would pop by, completely unannounced.
Yeah.
Like, give that man the guitar and stand back, please.
Yeah, it would be gold. Yeah.
I remember tricking people into playing. Johnny Winter, who I love, Johnny Winter.
Yeah.
Was his first song was I think it was Maybelline, was one of his songs that he ever recorded. And so I picked up, he said, "Look, his manager says he's not gonna play. He'll talk to you. You can interview him. He's not gonna play. He's just vehemently not into playing. Okay, no problem. So I'm picking up the guitar while I'm talking to Johnny Winter, and I'm playing Maybelline on the guitar, and I'm playing it wrong. I kept doing it wrong, and I kept doing it. I wanted to get, and then finally he snatches the guitar. He says, "Give me that. I'll show you how to do it." And he plays it perfect. I'm thinking, "Oh, gotcha."
There you go. That's the way to do it. Yeah, so you have all those experiences.
It was really nice. So that's part of it. I love the fact that I get to talk to a lot of my idols. Like I remember talking to the Beatles and Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr and stuff, and that was pretty thrilling.
Yeah.
I've also met all of my idols, and I hate to say it, a lot of them are jerks,
Yeah.
And a lot of your Class A idols are real assholes. So that's another. That's like, hey, I had no idea that guy was an asshole. Well, you live and you learn.
Yeah, exactly. There's,
But all of my friends are getting into the Hall of Fame now. They're all like, "Hey, Greg, when are you going to go in the Hall of Fame?" Listen, man, I don't think I'm getting in there except if by buying a ticket.
Right.
But, Joe Judson in the Hall of Fame, Cheap Trick's in the Hall of Fame, Steve Miller, everybody that I know around here is in the Hall of Fame, and I thought to myself, well, eventually, even Journey's going to be here. They are in it. So, I thought to myself, your day will come. And if it never comes, well, big deal. You had a great career. I mean, I look back on my life, man. It's been amazing. I had no idea I was going to do all this stuff. I had a great literary career. I wrote a bunch of books. I got a new one getting ready to come out. So I had a great literary career. I had a great musical career, and I had a bunch of hit records. How rare is that? And then I had a great career on the radio. And I had to get up every day and go down there at 4 a.m. But it was, besides that, it was really cool. So I had a great career. I've had a couple of really good careers. And, of course, being a songwriter is probably my number one thing. But, it's a wonderful thing. I don't think very many people can say that. I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, and so tell me about the new book that you have that's about to come out, because you had Painted Black and Rubber Souls that tied in together. And does this tie into that realm, or is this independent?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I wrote the first book, which was Rubber Soul, which was about Usman Bob and his adventures and how he saved the Beatles. And then in the second book, it was the same thing, except that it was Brian Jones, the murder of Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones. And then he kind of solves that. So I'm working on the third one right now that is pretty much done. It's called Anarchy, and it takes place in the Sex Pistols in the 70s. I was in London for a lot of the 70s, so I saw a lot of this stuff firsthand.
Yeah.
And I got another one that's just about completed called Southern Gothic, which is with Hank Williams is in it. The death of Hank Williams is pretty cool. And then I got another one called 45 RPM, which is the mafia in the music business. So I got 3 or 4 of them ready to go. Hopefully this will be a good year.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And so do you just, how do you work on multiple projects like that at the same time? When you have kind of these stories going through your head, and not just kind of be solely dedicated into one, how do you kind of put it aside to kind of keep working on another?
For some reason I don't have that problem. I have a compartmentalized my thinking, and it's nothing. I could be working on. I'm sitting here right now with my feet on this desk.
Yeah.
My feet are on the Anarchy manuscript, so I might quit this, work on that, and then, maybe half an hour later, I'll just, out of the clear blue, I'll start working on a song. So I don't have problems jumping from one thing to another. In fact, it kind of makes it fresh.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you're getting stuck and you're not, like if you're trying to write a song, you just can't get that chorus right. Well, work on something else for a couple hours and come back to it. Chances are it'll work itself out. And I just love being the creative muscle, whatever that is in your brain. That's kind of where I'm at. I love being creative, and I never run out of ideas. And if I ever do, well, I'll check out of the old hotel at that point.
Right.
But I don't see that. I've got enough ideas for songs and novels for another 10 years, I would say.
And so, are you working on a new album as well? I thought I heard you were last year. Where?
Yeah, actually, I got a couple of songs down towards the next album. As a matter of fact, Robert and I were working just a couple of weeks ago on a new song called "Flying Car." I've been watching, all these shows about flying cars. They say it's just around the corner, and I thought, hey, what a cool idea for a song, Flying Cars. So we wrote the song, laid it down, and then we wrote another one, and then we wrote another one. And it just, these things, you don't plan to be working on an album, but the next thing you know, look, oh my, I got 3 songs. I might as well keep going. So I don't really plan about it or think about it, okay, this is an album and it's going to be this. No, we're just kind of cruising along, and it looks like we're going to have an album here probably in the next 6 months, so why fight it? I really enjoyed the songs that we've been writing lately, and writing with Robert Barry, I got to tell you, man, the guy he's such a great musician. And you know how Paul and John would fill in each other's spots, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the middle 8 is what they'd always look for. And I do that with Robert. I say, hey Robert, come up with a bridge here or something. And just out of the clear blue, he'll come up with something. It'll work. And I loved writing songs with Robert. And I have a feeling that at something, down the road here, at some point down the road, it's going to turn into another album.
Yeah. And so with all this writing that you've been doing, also back to the books that you write, have you ever kind of explored taking those books into making it into sort of a screenplay? I mean, there's so many outlets on that right now.
I'm so glad you asked me that, because I am doing that. As a matter of fact, I just completed the screenplay for 45 RPM because I visualized it as kind of like a Sopranos TV show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Episodic television. And, it's a big old novel, and so it's like The Godfather. You could do it for the entire season. And so like that, that would be the first season. I would probably write the second season after that. But, I get a lot of ideas, and I'm trying to wrestle a few of them over into scripts and see where that goes. Hollywood is a crazy place, and whenever I go down there, I always, I love to go down there and see my literary agent. We always have we could have a good lunch at the delicatessen, like Cantor's or one of those places. I love going down there, but the nice thing about LA is when you leave and you're going home, what a crazy, wonderful place. Glad I'm going home.
It's nice to visit. You don't want to stick around. Yeah, for sure. There's a reason you live in the Bay.
Oh, hey, listen, and this is something I was explaining to my son last week. He says, Dad, we should all move down to L.A. Everything's down in L.A. And I said, let me tell you something, son. If I was living in L.A., I would be, and I have done this 2 or 3 times in my life, but I would be celebrity number 2,571.
Yeah.
That's how far down the celebrity list I would be in Hollywood. Now, I walk around in the Bay Area, people know me.
Yeah.
They pull over, hey, Greg, love that song, love this. And they're like brothers, and it's like, over here, I'm celebrity number 240, it's way higher than LA.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. When we go out to dinner or we go to the store or I go into a, Guitar Center or something like that, it's like, hey, Greg, how you doing? And, there's a camaraderie that you have here in the Bay Area that you don't really get down in L.A.
Yeah, and there's something to, a place feeling like home also, right? And you've lived here so long.
Yeah, that's important too. That really is. My son would think, it's going to be real glamorous when we're down in Hollywood. No, it's not. They're going to, it's not going to be, it's not what you think. Let me put it that way.
Wears out quick, I'm sure. So, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, thank you for taking the time today. Definitely look forward to hearing the new stuff that you have coming out, and I wish I could go to the show at SAC that you're going to have. You're going to be playing at the.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun, yeah. And the other thing is we're working on the song "Flying Car."
Yeah.
My goal, of course, I haven't cleared this with anybody yet, but we're going to just make that available for download for free.
Oh, nice. Okay, you heard it here first.
So we'll just put it up on the GregKihn.com website, and people would like to get, they could download it, they could stream it, they could listen to it, do whatever they want to do. And it was just basically just for free as an added bonus from the last album. So, I guess at some point we'll be thinking about the next album, so that'll be something probably that would be front and center at that point. But yeah, it's going to be free, man. Hey, it's free.
Hey, that's a great price. You can't beat it, right? So
can't beat it.
No complaints there. So very cool, Greg. Have an awesome rest of your day. Good luck with the rest of your writing and the books that are coming out as well. And yeah, we'll be chatting with you soon, okay?
Well, thanks a ton, and I really appreciate it, Steve. Let's do it again down the road.
We absolutely should.
Okay, man.
All right, later, Greg.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, and that was my final interview with Greg Kihn from episode 186 of Concert Pipeline. Back on July 9th, 2018 was when that aired. And one thing that I wanted to note about that interview as I listened back to it a little bit was he talked about the band living past him, and his son was in his band, his son Ryan Kihn. And so I went to Ryan Kihn's Facebook page, and he posted something very nice, which I wanted to share. But I love talking to him about even just in joking, but really, his music's going to live on. So we talked about his grandchildren taking over his music, and the band never stopping since his son is in his band. So Ryan posted as less than an hour ago, as of this recording. Dad passed away on Tuesday. I am blessed to have had such a great dad, and I felt a special bond sharing music with him for over 20 years as the guitarist in the Greg Kihn Band. He was the most positive person I knew. I'm grateful to have shared the stage with my dad. He was always encouraging and generous in the spotlight. It was like learning from a PhD in rock. As I sat and played guitar for him at his bedside in the final days, I couldn't help but be flooded by memories of countless gigs on hundreds of stages, looking over my left shoulder to see the man who was my idol as a kid, working the crowd and grinning back at me. R.I.P. Dad, rock on, as he used to say. I think he will rock on. and his rock will live on, which is really great. So we're going to close out this episode with one song from Greg Kihn's show at the I was at a casino in Lincoln, California, and Thunder Valley, and on August 11th, 2017. And this is a song called Madison Avenue. Rock on, Greg Kihn.
Yes.